Seconds.
Alright, it's a red light.
Yes, it
blinking.
is, yes.
So, welcome to the penultimate one of this series about the Midnight Cleaners album and the making of it. There are two songs I haven't tackled because I tackled this one in a bigger thing. This was the big hit. It's got 12 million streams already, so. And that's just off one well-known platform. That's Only a Shadow, which, as you can see, I barely know. I have to practice it myself. I mean, it was 43 years ago, so. Etc. And the other one is, of course. Can't blame me for not knowing them really, but this album, it was the third Cleaners from Venus cassette album. The first one was Blow Away Your Troubles, which was might as well have been knocked up in a tractor shed by a couple of bennies. It was done by me. The first one was done by me and Lol Elliott on a Sony TC630 sound machine. I mean, we've got incredible blunders. You know, I'd be hungover and Lol would be sort of generally a bit chaotic when he arrived, and we had to get it all done before my girlfriend at the time got home because she was very bad tempered. There was recording material strewn all over the place, and I won't give her name because I know she studies the Facebook posts now, and I've got no problem with her, but she was a bit tetchy at the time. So Barbara. So well, one day, with typical thing, somebody spilt a drink. I turned round, dropped a cigarette, kicked the paraffin heater over, which then spilled out a little bit of paraffin on the floor and set fire to the carpet. And we finished the day by pressing the wrong button and bulk erasing most of the full track called A Blue Wave, which I was just so disappointed about. You know, we laugh about it now, but at the time it was absolute chaos. Drinks knocked over, carpet set on fire. We got it all straightened out before she came home, and you couldn't blame her really, being a bit. And then the second album was me once I got the main Porter Studio, which was the 144, the TEAC 144, which was revolutionary because I could do things in stereo. And we did On Any Normal Monday. I don't know if that's due for release, but for me, that was the biggie. That was the one I expected, if anything, to be the Rolls Royce of DIY cassettes. In fact, time has vindicated none of them but this one, because it contained a brace of numbers on it, like This Rainy Decade, Time in Vain, Only a Shadow, Corridor of Dreams, which is about to be used for a film, quite an important big film, which I'm not allowed to talk about, and it had The Midnight Cleaners, The Factory Boy, A Wretched Street. It was full of what are now classics, but at the time I just thought it was the, you know, a pretty good follow-up to what I'd regarded as the Rolls Royce among cassettes. And we made not 50 of them, actually. I went back to my diaries. We actually made 25 of them. And I went off to my washing up job, and they sort of sold, or we sent them out to fanzines, who reviewed them 6 months later. And you know, I never expected that 43 years later, in fact sooner than that, a band called MGMT, who I believe were quite big at the time. When would that have been, nearly about 2012? I remember my daughter, who is filming me now, and her friend Stella, who is John Cooper Clarke's daughter, came round, and I said to these girls, young teenagers as they were then, I said, "Have you ever heard of a band called MGMT?" And they said, "Yes." And I said, "Oh, well, apparently they've covered one of my songs." And they were like no way. And so we looked it up on one of my early laptops, which took some time, and there it was. They had covered it. They weren't the first to cover it, and they weren't the only ones to cover it. It did kind of break it for a bit, but it just became well known. I've spoken to people. At any given point in time, you can hear Only a Shadow being played in a cafe or a bar anywhere across the world. A Scottish promoter told me that. He just said, you can go into a cafe in South America or something like that, or Italy, and you will hear only a shadow. You will hear that chorus, which I can remember. I'll have to fiddle with that riff. You wouldn't believe I can't play it, but I haven't had to play it. I never thought I'd ever be doing it live. And when we did do it live, I got those very young musicians in the Gardeners who are kind of like they're not exactly like the Monkees, they're like a very polite English version, but they've been together for so long. You imagine them all living in the same house and having adventures, except academic ones. Like during lockdown, one of them spent his time learning Japanese, which is pretty amazing. And probably be very useful when he becomes a pop star. And so Only a Shadow became this. It's got its own Wikipedia entry. The industry had nothing to do with it. Nobody was interested. If I sent it off, very often no replies came back. And if I ever played it to anyone who was in the music industry, they just kind of said, well, some might be all right if you recorded them properly. That meant, going into a big expensive studio. Why would anyone do that? I thought it sounded all right as it was, and time has vindicated me. So I've just carried on kind of doing that really, except now I don't think you could really call me lo-fi anymore. I'm kind of mid-fi now, because I've picked up a few good tricks, and I'm starting to write little pieces of sort of semi-classical. I'm experimenting with semi-classical stuff, because my theory is that all these big symphonies, people don't remember the whole symphony, not unless there's something wrong with them. They remember the good bit, and the good bit is nearly always 3 minutes long, which is why singles and songs and everything that everyone likes is about 3 minutes long, including da 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 to the Moonlight Sonata and anything by Erik Satie. So that's it. It's all got to be about 3 minutes long. You may as well make it 3 minutes long, because no one's going to remember the rest of it, all right? And I'll be seeing you next time.